There's a whole subreddit about people's workplace problems, questions, and concerns, and since my entire job is speaking, training, and consulting on workplace culture issues, I thought I'd answer a few of them. Ready, go! Should I report a supervisor whose bad behavior has stopped? At work, there's one particular supervisor who singled out a few staff members, including me, and was basically bullying us. At the time, I was weighing up whether to report it, and when I was on the verge of doing so, her behavior suddenly switched, and she was so overly nice. The bullying had gone on for months, but for the past month, she's been okay. I suspect this is because she saw me deep in conversation with another staff member who also reported her, and figured we were talking about her, and she stopped as she was scared I would report her. While it's good that her behavior has improved, I'm very annoyed that I didn't get the attention of a manager. I wish I had reported it at the time. Should I report it so they know what she's like? Several other staff members have made reports about her, so if I report too, it shows it's a pattern. I'm a little bit torn on this one because I love to give people the benefit of the doubt, but if it is a pattern and if you have documented the negative behavior, then it's probably worth mentioning to a manager and making a report. Maybe even include in the report that it seems that there is something changing. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. For all you know, a manager got all the other reports, sat down with this person, and had a serious conversation about how their behavior needed to change or they were going to lose their job, and that's why the behavior changed. Which is exactly how the system is supposed to work. And sometimes people are horrible and toxic and bullies, not because they're trying to be bad people, but because they're just doing what's been modeled to them. But either way, it's probably worth making some note of it if you have any sort of documentation. If you don't have proof or documentation, just wait, and if the behavior recurs, then do it. Keep an eye out, but hope that maybe someone else has already fixed the problem like they're supposed to. Should I only talk about strictly work-related stuff at work? Should I avoid getting close to anyone at work? My main concern is the saying that goes, coworkers are not your friends. I've heard this so many times that now it's turned into coworkers can't/shouldn't be your friends in my mind. This is going to depend heavily on your workplace and the individual people in it. OP continues to go on and say that this is their first job, but they've worked there for a couple years. After a couple years, you should have felt out decently what kind of people you're working with. Like any relationship, you build trust slowly. You definitely shouldn't go into work in your first few months and start trauma dumping on your coworkers. That's probably not going to go well. But mentioning aspects of your personal life, your hobbies, your interests, seeing if there are shared hobbies or interests is absolutely fine. If you mention that you're going mountain biking this weekend and you have a coworker who's really into mountain biking and eventually you end up mountain biking together, there's nothing wrong with that. That should happen slowly, that should happen organically, and you should recognize that a lot of times if you leave an organization, you will leave those friendships however close they are behind as well. Not because the friendships weren't real, but just because they were somewhat based on proximity. Usually what people mean when they're saying your coworkers aren't your friend is that you shouldn't be confiding things in your coworkers that you wouldn't want the rest of the office or your manager or supervisor to know about. If there's something that's going to make you a legal risk to the company or put you in hot water, don't think, ooh, yeah, all my coworkers are gonna have my back. Hopefully they do because you have a great trusting workplace culture, but work usually isn't the place to be venting about the argument you had with your spouse over the weekend. They don't need your baggage. Just treat it case by case, and again, extend trust a little at a time and see how people respond to it. That's how relationships work. I've noticed now that I've been working a bunch that the older generation seemingly never want to use their sick leave no matter how sick they are. I'm fairly young at 30 compared to many at my work, and I actually use mine when I'm sick. That's what it's there for. That being said, I do try not to waste it, just wondering why the older generation refuse to use their sick leave. There can be a lot of reasons for this. One is just culture. There are a lot of people who have grown up being taught that you work hard and you do what you have to, and we aren't lazy, and that's what it's about. It was also more common in decades past that if you really showed your loyalty to a company, you would be rewarded for that loyalty. And so there's a mindset that if I show them I'm dedicated and I'm going to work hard no matter what, I'm going to get bonuses and promotions and raises. But you also have a lot of people who just find it easier to not take days off sick. And I believe this is a big workplace culture problem, and it tends to affect people who are in roles that require more experience. Because they're a role that it isn't easy to pick up the slack on. Maybe they do a job that they are the only one who does the job. And so taking a day off sick just means more work piling up for you when you get back. And so a lot of people end up thinking, well, I'm just going to be stressing out about the work not getting done while I'm sick. So unless I'm really sick, I'd rather just go get the work done, get it taken care of, so it's not one more thing piling up on my plate. Now, if that's the kind of place you're working at, then I think there's a culture problem in not building in redundancy in roles so that people can take true vacations and breaks, but it is a reality of a lot of jobs, and so people might not be taking sick leave for that reason. And there it's just a correlation that older workers have more experience and then are more likely statistically to be in positions like that. There are a lot of complex cultural factors that determine people's relationship to work, but there are still a lot of people who associate their work with their worth, and so they feel lazy and useless and not as good of a person if they're taking time off. And it's sad. I don't think that's a good thing. And this is specifically a topic that I talk about in a lot of my keynotes and trainings to try to create workplace cultures that don't have as much burnout. And people refusing to take time off because of the additional stress it creates is one of those big problems. I'm used to bosses who are hands-off. My complaints were usually about how I received no feedback and had no idea how well or badly I was doing. Well, my new boss does nothing but give me feedback. I hesitate to say micromanaging, but goodness, this new boss, young and maybe has something to prove, just won't stop. By the way, good work. Not going straight to this new boss is horrible. I appreciate that this poster recognizes this boss may be new, they may have something to prove, and that there are other factors influencing this behavior. Way to give people the benefit of the doubt. Whether in person or in emails, words are coming in. When they ask a question, it's not framed as, I want to understand the process, but why is it like that? If there's a problem, why haven't you fixed it yet? My list of action items are growing and they don't seem to realize these things they want me to do will take time. Then there's just the irritating thing of being told to do something I was going to do anyway, that I knew was part of getting the job done. They go on to say that they're feeling less productive because of it. I actually think this person has already hit the nail on the head. Even in the quotes that they're giving of, why is it like that? If there's a problem, why haven't you fixed it? They all scream insecure new boss to me. This feels like a manager who is new to management, maybe recently promoted, and they don't want to come across as looking incompetent, which is why they feel afraid of asking, how does this work? Explain it to me. Because there are a lot of people, especially if they have been modeled toxic bosses in their past, they've never been taught how to manage people. And their biggest fear is coming across looking like they don't know anything. They've got imposter syndrome. They think, I shouldn't be in charge. I'm not qualified. And they feel the need to put on this face of, I've got it all figured out. I know what's best. That's not the answer, but it's also a very reasonable and human fear for someone who feels like they have been given an opportunity and they don't want to screw it up. So recognize, odds are in this case, this boss is scared, they do have something to prove, they are likely new, they are likely younger, and they aren't trying to be mean, they just want to look competent. The great news is that this means they care. And if someone cares, there's usually an opportunity to correct them. You just need to provide that correction without triggering the defensive response that's going to make them try to act all superior and like they know everything. They need to not have their competence threatened, which makes this a perfect opportunity for the nice, cliche compliment sandwich. Set aside a time to talk to your boss. Schedule an appointment with them however it works in your workplace, and then say something like, hey, I've really appreciated how involved you have been as a supervisor. My last manager never gave me any feedback, they were never involved, and it really frustrated me. And I appreciate that you care enough about my role and my position here to pay attention. So there you've got the first compliment. You're saying, hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do. Then you just ask for help. Say, can you help me with something as I'm adjusting to this? And they'll probably say, yeah, I'm happy to help, because they want to be a good boss. Most people are going to say they're willing to help. And then say something to the effect of, because I've always had really hands-off managers, I'm not used to getting this much feedback, and I'm finding it to be really overwhelming. A lot of your ideas are really good, and I want to implement them. Some of them I was already implementing anyway, but there just isn't enough time in the day, and I'm not sure what is the highest priority when it comes to your vision for this department, this role, whatever they're in charge of. So I've gone ahead and I've made a list of all of the things you've asked me to do or change or modify recently, and I just wanted to walk through it with you and ask, what do you think is urgent, really high priority, what's medium priority, and which things should be done last? They just aren't that urgent, even if they're still good things. The beauty of this is that you aren't making them feel like you don't want to do the work. You're telling them, I love your ideas, I want to do all the work, I just can't do it all at the same time. What's the most important thing for your vision? Everyone feels good about sharing what's important for their vision, but it also forces them to reflect and say, oh, this person has time constraints. What is the most important? Am I asking too much of them? And then they have to roughly prioritize things. So it's a chance to just make them reflect. If they end up saying something like, well, it's all urgent and it's all important, then you can just say, well, I can't do it all. There just isn't enough time. So what should I delegate to someone else? Or should we look at other ways to solve this? There may have to be some pushback if they insist that every single thing they say must be done right now. But from what you've said, odds are they're reasonable enough to realize, ooh, yeah, priorities are a real thing that people have to manage. Then, however you have ranked them, maybe even give them numbers or groups. And anytime they send more words in saying, ooh, what about this thing and do that, and why haven't you done this? Just say, that's a great idea. Is that priority 1 or is it priority 5? So then every time they're sending you stuff, there's a immediate pushback where they have to say, oh, is this that important? This will help them start automatically self-reflecting on whether the thing they're sending you is even worth sending, because they're immediately getting mental load thrown back in their face about deciding, is this worth my time? But not in a disrespectful way, in a sincere, I want to do this, I want us to succeed way, which is why they will likely accept it. And then, of course, you can end that conversation with the other side of the compliment sandwich saying, thank you so much. I really appreciate how invested you are in our division, team, departments, whatever, success, and that you care enough about my role and my job and me to have this conversation, so on and so forth. The other thing that goes well here is if you can frame their change in behavior not as a correction or feedback for them, but as a request for help in helping you. People are much more likely to respond well to you asking for their help, especially if they are the boss, than if you try to tell them what to do better. This is one of the ways you can effectively manage up and help a supervisor become a better supervisor. Because again, most managers never receive good management training. They aren't taught how to lead people. And so if you've watched this, you've now been taught some, and you can help them learn some. And for most bosses that want to do a good job, things like this will work well. But it all starts, like this person did, with recognizing my boss isn't trying to ruin my life, they're just insecure and trying to prove something. Because it can stop the us versus them contest we often get into, and you can work together to help each other, instead of fighting each other for years and hating everything. Well, I enjoyed these, and I'm probably going to do more of them because it lets me look at real workplace problems that people, potentially including you, might be having, instead of just using contrived hypotheticals that I have to make up. So if you enjoyed this, please share it with a coworker, a colleague, or a friend who may need to hear it, and hit all the buttons for the YouTube metrics. Get out there and make the world a better place.